fellow staffing, and I guess we have a question for you, Mark, which is, what do
For me.
Mark? Oh, for you, Jeff. Okay, so Jeff, what do you think Niels and Mark have in common?
Well, you sort of gave away the punchline when you said it was Marc Z, but the answer is Marc Z and something about employment.
Ah, maybe. But I'm sure it'll be entertaining.
We all know that Peter has more charm than humor.
Well,
That's
why
the answer to that
Thanks,
joke.
Jeff.
that's why you guys make a very good team. Good to see you, Peter. Jeff, good evening. Good to see you. And it's nice to have our producer, Steve Shear, with us, too.
Well, we're all together, the happy foursome.
Well,
Combined.
what I thought I'd talk about today was interesting. Last weekend, I had the opportunity to be at a dinner with several CEOs, and everybody, it's like being at a social gathering. It's like when you're a doctor, people will start telling you about their problems. When you're in the employment business, people will start telling you about issues. And what they were saying to me was the biggest problem they have is everybody gives references, usually, that are helpful to themselves. Even if you do a background check, it's hard to find information. So even if they do the interview, it's hard to probe and get the answers they want. So what they were saying is that a key way that they have been able to determine whether or not somebody is right for their company is by inviting them out to a meal. Whether it's a breakfast,
Break bread.
right, breaking bread, and finding out what the person's like, because you can't really hide what you're like at a meal.
You mean so if they chew with their mouth open, that kind of stuff?
I
Well,
hope not.
well-
You know what, just to let you know, I probably see, if you take all my clients, I would say I've seen 100% of them over a meal, over a lunch or a breakfast, and I try to do it that way because I find that when I have them out for a meal, they let their hair down and they really tell me what's going on, and they're really much more disclosing. When you have them in their office, it's not the same. When you have an interview in the office, and I do the same thing with interviews. I meet them at coffee shops, I meet them at restaurants, and I talk to them because I find that if I really want to get to know them
Right.
and really get to understand who the person is, to get them out of that context into a social context, that's the best way to do it.
But there's still an art to the psychology of getting them to talk.
Right, but as Jeff said, it's really a barrier breaker. And it's really interesting because people really are different. When you're in an office interview, it's really cookie cutters sometime, formal interview, pre-screening, whereas this takes it away from it all, and you get a chance to really focus on what that person is really like, because after all the background checks, after all the screenings, after all the steps, somebody can really be a negative fit to your company. And so what they talk about, ironically, when I was thinking about a good subject after the weekend, and then ironically that following Sunday, I look in the paper, and there is a nice article by Peter Post, who does the etiquette at work section of the Globe. And he talks about 7 simple steps for being a good guest at a business meal. And so it's not just, and I said, boy, this really applies to what we were saying about an employee. So first of all, when they talk about an employer says, okay, now what we're gonna do is we're gonna go out for lunch. And a lot of times it's done spontaneously, but if they say something in advance that we're gonna all meet over at the Langham Hotel in the Cafe Fleury for lunch, first of all, if they send you an email or if they call you, make sure you return the call and RSVP. So as an employer, if I'm extending myself now for a meeting with you, I'm trying to look at it in a positive way, make sure you do that step.